Okay, so as you move along in your woodworking journey, there's gonna come a time when you need to switch from making one-offs, one time making a piece, to making multiple of that piece. Now, sometimes that's a particular cutting board shape that you wanna repeat. Sometimes it's gonna be parts to a chair or some other piece of furniture, and you're gonna wanna be able to use a template. These bits here are the key to doing that. Let's check that out. Okay, let's talk about the bits. So a flush trim bit is basically a shank with a straight bit and a bearing. And they come in kind of two different models. You have the bearing at the bottom and the bearing at the top. And that just kind of depends on what your needs are. If you are routing and you need your template on the top, then you'll use this bit. If you need your template on the bottom, so a lot of times if I'm using a router table, I'll use this one. You can also get them in a 1/2-inch shank for heavier duty or taller, thicker pieces that you need to route. So additionally, you also have router choice here. You can use a larger fixed base or plunge router, or a lot of times if you're just using a 1/4-inch shank, it's a lot easier to use a trim router because it's easy to maneuver and a little bit lighter. So you have some choice in routers as well. Okay, so the idea behind this is that you have a template that is repeatable that you can put onto a piece of wood, and then you can take your flush trim bit or your template bit, line the bearing up with the template and run the bearing along the template. It's gonna basically trace this. Beauty of that is that I can take this template and put it on another piece, and I can cut out two of this exact same piece. So I'm gonna lay my template on there. It doesn't have to be on there perfectly, and I'm going to draw a line around it. This is for a rough cut, an initial cut just to remove the bulk of the extra material. So we'll take it over to the bandsaw where we can rough cut it out. The point here is to stay outside the line about a 1/16 of an inch to an 1/8 of an inch and just trim off that extra. Okay, so I've got my piece rough cut out here. You can see that the lines, it's about a 1/16 to an 1/8 of an inch out. So now I need to attach my template. Now there's a couple different ways that you can attach your template. Probably the easiest way to do it is to take your template, line it up where you want it, and pop some short 18 or 23 gauge pin nails in there. I'm using a 3/4 inch pin nail here so that it barely goes in. It's meant to just hold it in place so the template doesn't shift as I'm doing my work. Okay, and I would put multiple of those in there. Your other option would be to use something like a 2-sided tape. And this is a great way to do it because it doesn't put holes in your work, but it's a little more expensive. So you would take a piece of double-sided tape here, cut a little strip off, peel the back off, and set your template on there, and it's nice and strong. Your template won't come off. Now. Okay, so before we start routing, we need to set the depth of the router bit. So the bearing needs to ride right on the template here. So we're gonna set it so that the bearing hits the template, but also that the bit comes all the way through to the bottom. We wanna make sure that we're making a clean cut all the way through. And you might have to use a longer bit depending on the thickness of your material. So as you can see, it's taken this and flushed it up perfectly with the template. So now we just need to flip our material around and cut the rest of it out. For these inside mortises, it's actually gonna be easier to use a plunge router so that I can drop down into the material and set that bit at the right depth. So we removed a majority of the material with a drill, and now we're going to flush it up with the template router. You can also use a router table with a flush trim bit or a template routing bit by putting it in the table and routing the opposite direction.